Can Trump's aircraft carriers scare Iran? As the ghostly shadow of a B-2 sweeps over the Isfahan Mountains, a 13.6-ton GBU-57 Fortress Killer drill bomb rips through rock formations, and the underground nuclear facility at Fordo shudders in a deafening explosion. The smoke has not yet cleared from the Persian Plateau, and Tehran's construction machinery is already roaring over the rubble. Before the smoke had cleared from the Persian Plateau, Tehran's construction machinery was roaring over the ruins. Uranium enrichment centrifuges hummed anew, and the International Atomic Energy Agency verification team was forcibly expelled. Just as Trump waved the complete destruction of Iran's nuclear program war cry, trying to reshape the order of the Middle East by force of intimidation, a military procurement contract from the East is quietly rewriting the rule book of this life and death game. Within 48 hours of the ceasefire agreement, ink is not dry. Iranian Defense Minister Nazar has appeared at the Qingdao meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization defense ministers to urgently finalize the first batch of 36 Chinese J-10C fighter jet procurement contract, the subsequent plan to expand the army to 400 scale, and the simultaneous introduction of Air Marshal 500 early warning aircraft and cutting-edge anti-stealth radar system. This list of military purchases is Iran's strategic declaration, written in steel and data chains. They choose to meet the Western iron fist with the Eastern shield. The life and death dilemma under the decaying iron wings forced Tehran to make this desperate decision. Open the Iranian Air Force equipment list. Shocking, about 70% of the warplanes are still the 1979 Islamic Revolution, before the purchase of the F-4, Ghost, and F-5, Tiger type. These service more than half a century of antique. These antiques have been in service for more than half a century, with rusted fuselages and avionics systems stuck in the analog signal era. More deadly is the vulnerability of its air defense network. Despite having a Russian-made S-300 air defense system, but the core chip has long relied on the international black market smuggling supply. 2023 Israel Air Force 7 simulated raid exercises. These valuable air defense weapon was as silent as scrap metal. The Israeli Electronic Warfare Forces pinpointed and paralyzed its reliance on smuggling chip backdoor, and the delivery of the Russian-made Su-35 has been delayed indefinitely due to the immense depletion of the Ukrainian battlefield, completely blocking Iran's access to modern warplanes from the north. At the moment of life and death, they will look to the east. China's J-10C, the NATO-called Flaming Fangs, in the Sino-Pakistani Eagle joint exercises have repeatedly suppressed India's French-made Rafale. The J-10C has become a key bargaining chip to break the game. The value of J-10C is far more than the performance of a single aircraft can cover. Iran is thirsty for the Chinese military industry to create a systematic combat ecology. J-10C equipped with KLJ-7A active phased array radar, with a range of up to 145 kilometers of the Thunderbolt 1-5E long-range air-to-air missiles, can be in the Air Marshal 500 AWACS 470 kilometers of ultra-long-range detection under the auspices of the stealth target implementation of the fatal, a shot-be guide, hunting. This is exactly the Israeli F-35I, which is the first time in the world that the Iranian F-35I has been used in the Air Force. This is the Israeli F-35I fleet is most afraid of the mode of operation. This system has been brutally verified on the Pakistani border, in the India-Pakistan airspace standoff in 2022. The PAF J-10C utilized the Air Marshal 500 target information shared by the data chain to successfully lock the Indian Rafale fighter jet out of visual range, forcing the latter to give up its mission and withdraw. What makes Tehran even more impressed is the system compatibility of Chinese weapons, from the Red Flag 9B air defense system to launch a counterattack in 15 seconds of rapid response to the 052D Destroyer Hawk 18 anti-ship missiles, will be the U.S. aircraft carrier's back. 500 kilometers of the strategic deterrent, all the equipment through the integration of the data chain seamless connection. This and Iran's current, universal brand weapons bazaar, in sharp contrast to the chaotic situation. The French Mirage fighter cannot share data with the Russian air defense radar, the US F-14 parts to be secretly imitated by 3D printing. The French Mirage cannot share data with Russian air defense radars, and parts for the American F-14 have to be secretly copied by 3D printing. What China is offering is a complete set of combat solutions, from early warning and detection to firefighting. From electronic countermeasures to battlefield management, the game of life and death is being played under the arms sales negotiation table. Israel's Mossad agents monitor the negotiation process day and night, because they know that time is on their side. Just 72 hours after the ceasefire airstrikes, 17 U.S. C-17 transport planes landed at Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv, unloading more than 3,000 tons of precision-guided munitions and aviation parts, so that missile strikes on the Israeli Air Force to quickly, back to blood. Iran, even if today's signing, but also face a long-time shackles. Pilots in China's Songzhou Flight Training Center to complete the modification of 18 months, the production line to adjust and Persian cockpit interface adaptation at least 2 years. The real formation of combat power is afraid to drag to 2028. More brutal is the financial news. By the US financial sanctions, Iran's annual military spending has been compressed to only $7.9 billion, less than 1/10 of India. The first 36 J-10C need to consume nearly half of its equipment procurement costs, supporting the Air Marshal 500 early warning aircraft unit price of up to $280 million. Tehran may need to use a fleet of secret tankers to export crude oil in spite of sanctions, or even use the rights to exploit oil and gas fields in the Caspian Sea as collateral. In order to come up with this life preservation money, China is also playing its strategic game carefully. Beijing's core concern is the lack of strategic mutual trust. If Iran follows the example of Turkey's both ends meet strategy of the past, while purchasing Chinese weapons, while in the Vienna nuclear negotiations to the US secret concessions or key technical parameters leaked to a third party, China is not a self-made blade to hurt themselves. As a warning circulated in China's military-industrial circles, without Pakistan's strategic mutual trust as a hardcore brother, we should not deliver such a national weapon as the Red Flag 19. Chinese negotiators insisted on the establishment of a full-cycle security mechanism, from the closed base operation and maintenance of the aircraft after delivery, to the encrypted supervision of the data chain system by the Chinese side, to the maintenance guarantee must be led by Chinese engineers. These harsh terms are in fact for Iran to draw a strategic red line. To obtain the Eastern Shield, you must completely cut off the ambiguity with the West. When the balance of power in the Middle East and China's precision lathe milling sound quietly reset, Trump's extreme pressure strategy is encountering the bottom of the countermeasures. When Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi reiterated at the United Nations the 3 bottom lines on the nuclear issue, the right to sustain uranium enrichment, the full lifting of US sanctions, and the non-development of nuclear weapons, the White House, Iran's zero uranium enrichment threat hit the steel defense line made in the East. Imagine J-10C formed into the Isfahan Air Base scene, Air Marshal 500 radar beams such as a huge network covering the Persian Gulf. With the Red Flag 9B constructed three-dimensional air defense network, Israel F-35I raid on Iran's nuclear facilities, surgery, will be completely reduced to a fantasy, and the future moored in the port of Bandar Abbas, 052D. The 052D destroyer moored in Bandar Abbas will have a range of 600 kilometers for its Hawk 18 anti-ship missiles, which will be enough to force the US carrier battle group to retreat beyond the Gulf of Oman. China is reshaping the Middle East security architecture with systematic equipment export. Saudi Arabia has introduced the Silent Hunter laser air defense system. The UAE has purchased L-15 advanced trainer aircraft, and Qatar has deployed BP-12 tactical aircraft. Qatar has deployed BP-12 tactical missiles. When the Islamic world has turned to Beijing in search of strategic balance, the traditional model of the United States to rely on arms sales to bind allies has encountered unprecedented challenges. The 36 J-10Cs in the skies over the Persian Gulf, where the smoke has ceased to show, are only the prelude to a larger narrative. If Iran really rebuilds its Air Force skeleton with 400 Chinese warplanes, together with the underground missile city and tens of thousands of various types of missiles all over the mountains, it will be able to build up an impossible structure before the US-Israeli decapitation operation. The Chinese military-industrial giant has built an impenetrable wall of deterrence in front of the US-Israeli decapitation operation. Every turn of the gears of China's military-industrial giant wheel is thinning the myth of Western military hegemony by an inch. When the J-10C's tail flame finally lights up the night sky over the Strait of Hormuz, Trump's carrier deterrence will eventually turn into a sluggish sea breeze sweeping across the Persian plateau, because the key to determining the future of the Middle East has quietly changed hands. This geopolitical game with fighter jets as pawns proves that, in the 21st century strategic chessboard, the real power not only comes from the sharpness of the weapons, but also from the construction of independent and autonomous national defense system, and the wisdom of the decision to choose a reliable strategic partner. Iran's choice has become a cruel model for small and medium-sized countries seeking strategic autonomy in the post-hegemonic era.